Welcome to Hello Chaos, a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic minds and lives of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Every week, we talk to founders from different industries at various stages of all shapes and sizes. We get to hear the real, the raw, the unbiased founder stories, and it's why our mantra is where aha meets oh shit. We drop new episodes every Sunday. Founders tune in to us for tips and insights, strategies on growing their business, or ways to be better owners and better business leaders. We find that they enjoy being a part of a community of like-minded, like-missioned of founders, and they no longer feel alone because they sense the camaraderie. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That is Orange Whip, WIP for Work in Progress. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. We've designed hyper-local media platforms to inform, inspire, and be the independent connective tissue between founders and the local entrepreneurial ecosystem. That's a mouthful. Our innovative digital zines are an all-in-one content hub with fresh and engaging stories, curated local calendars, and local dynamic roadmaps to help founders navigate that local ecosystem with ease. We've done the hard work for founders, so they'll need to go to one trusted place to find the local information they need. My name is Jennifer Sutton. My friends and family call me JJ. I'm the founder of Orange Whip and Bright Marketing, and I'm your host today. And so excited we have Heather Eason. She's the CEO and founder of Select Power Systems and many divisions of Select Power Systems. She's an author, she's a YouTuber, and I'm excited for her to be on this episode. Welcome to Hello Chaos, Heather.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Been looking forward to talking to you all week. Why don't you just start us out? Because you do have such a rich history and rich experience within the power and energy industry. And you're an author of the book of The Art of Revenge and several YouTube channels. Just how did you get into this? How did you start your entrepreneurial and your founder journey?
So it's kind of interesting. There was a rumor that went around that I was starting my own firm several years ago, and I absolutely was not at the time. It was not something I was thinking about. And I started getting all these phone calls from my friends. They're like, hey, we hear you're starting your own firm. No, I don't know where you heard that from. No. Well, we heard that and we think you should. We think you should do it. And so it kind of planted a seed. And then several years after that, I actually did take the jump and start my own company.
Whoa. And how long ago was that? Was that, what, 2017 or?
2017.
Okay. Um, I'm assuming that was in the industry you played in, was in power, like energy power utility. So what was the premise of the company? Just to be an outsourced solution to the role you were playing within the utility?
Yeah, so I've been in electric utilities for over 20 years, and when I had the opportunity to start my own company, I wanted to stay within my expertise.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to start an engineering firm that helps electric utilities with engineering, design, and project management because that was my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, okay, so as part of this journey, what have you discovered about yourself?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably the biggest thing that I've discovered is I am hard-headed. I just don't give up. I actually enjoy a challenge. If you want me to make sure I get something done, you tell me I can't do it. And then I'm going to move heaven and earth to get it done. So I'm just hard-headed.
Yeah. It's that grit and gumption that I think that makes up a lot of founders we have that spirit within us. I think that's what makes us a little bit unique in the business world. Okay, so this is the question I was going to ask you. If you had to sum up your full entrepreneurial journey in one word, what would it be?
Obstacles. So I am a first generation college graduate. I got pregnant at 16, not my choice, but I believe in life, and I had my son at 17.
Wow.
And I had to first figure out how to graduate high school, and then I had to get an engineering degree, get in the industry, learn the technical skills. And then when I decided to start my company, I bootstrapped it. I self-funded. I didn't have any backers. I didn't have any loans. I didn't have any money. It was just me. And so, I've just had to overcome a lot. There've been a lot of obstacles.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great, again, it goes back to that grit, that gumption, that perseverance of anything comes in your way, you're gonna just tackle it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, what's been the most rewarding part of starting your own company? And I mean, like, and not only just you start, but you've started other divisions, and it's like when you hit to become an entrepreneur, you went full out. What's been the most rewarding part of that?
The most rewarding part is that I get to make a positive impact in other people's lives.
Hmm.
So we've been remote since the beginning in 2017. So when COVID happened, we didn't skip a beat. We just kept doing what we were doing.
Yeah.
And, just recently, one of my engineers, he and his girlfriend had a child together. And he called me and he said, I just want to thank you. He said, I didn't realize how much work it would be to have a child added. And she had tough time with the pregnancy. So she
Yeah.
wasn't able to do a lot around the house. But because he worked remote from home and I gave him the flexibility, he was able to help take care of his girlfriend and his child. And he wouldn't have been able to do that with a standard 9 to 5 drive to the office every day
Right.
job, which is traditional in our industry.
Right. Right. Because yeah, we work with several utilities on, on the marketing side, and yeah, they are an in-office, very traditional uh, work environment. Yep. So you probably do offer that's that rewarding aspect of it, of that the nimbleness, the agility, a better work-life balance to your folks. Um, what do you think has been the most challenging? Like you talk about, you see obstacles and you run over them. What's been the biggest challenge?
Probably the biggest challenge and the thing that I didn't realize was payroll comes every 2 weeks. And sometimes clients don't pay. I had one client that got $295,000 in arrears.
Yep.
And I had payroll and I was like, what am I going to do? I've
Right.
got people who depend on me to be able to pay their mortgage, put food on their table, take care of their families, and I've got to figure out a way to make it happen.
Right.
And I actually had to hire a lawyer and have him send a letter to get them to pay me so that I could make payroll.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was, I'll be honest with you, that is terrifying. Carrying the weight of someone else's paycheck on your shoulders, that
Oh,
is a burden. It
it
really is.
is. And I think that's what separates, we talk about entrepreneurialism as a whole, what we call kind of the founder, business owner is a very different world in a different circle and different pressures than just people that are more innovators and solopreneurs. It really, because there's no risk there other than you might not pay your own bills, but you're worried. I mean, that was an aha moment for me too when I started, Bright in 2013. You, you take that responsibility on. You're out there doing a risk. You've got to learn cash flow and yeah, the bigger companies that you work with, like they're at 90-day, 120-day. It is no fun. It is trying to balance that. And a lot of banks and finance don't want to talk to you until you've been 3 years in the business or 5 years to be able to get kind of that, um, the financial, support. So I commend you for, it's hard to scale, and you've scaled to, you're you have some scalability on your company. I mean, yeah,
So I went from being an owner operator to having 50 plus employees.
that is,
And it's a difference when you're an owner operator than
that's
when
right.
you're trying, when And two, I mean, as an engineer, I'm kind of a control freak just by nature. I like to do things myself because I know I can do it and I know I can do it fast. But when you have to step back and you have to delegate and give employees the opportunity to learn
Mhm.
so that they can do it themselves, that was a very difficult, challenging thing for me to do, to hand it over to other people and trust that it got done,
Right.
and not to, to micromanage, but to literally hand it off and say, I'm here for support. I'm not going to contact you unless you need something, and then you contact me and I'm here. But I'm not going to micromanage. I'm not going to be in the weeds.
Right.
And that was a difficult transition.
Yeah, it's like I said, we go through these little stages of we learn about ourselves as a leader and a manager. Um, yeah, it's that those were some of my aha moments too. What what are some other what's like your biggest aha besides like the payroll thing of like, holy crap, I have to deal with payroll. And I got to deal with people paying me. I know that you said that was like a big, what was another big aha for you?
Another big aha for me was that I had a good reputation and I had a lot of friends in the industry. But when I started my company, regardless of how much they wanted to utilize me as a subcontractor, they couldn't because I was considered too high risk by their procurement department. So I had to meet several milestones or gates. I had to be in business for 3 years. I had to hit that $1 million in revenue. I had to hit these milestones before the larger companies would even talk to me or consider me for a subcontractor. And that was something I didn't realize. I thought, hey, if a friend of mine wants to utilize me or one of my employees for an engineering design, should be easy peasy. But no, you
Right,
had to have 3 years of financials, you had to have revenue, you had to have positive cash flow, you had to have risk programs in place.
right,
And so I had to go out and hire a consultant to develop these risk programs for me that we have to follow.
yeah,
Cybersecurity, even today, cybersecurity is something that is, whew, I'll
yeah,
be honest with you. I don't do federal government work, or if I do it as a subcontractor and I piggyback on the prime because the level that you need for security, the CMMC structure,
yeah.
it's almost cost prohibitive for a small company to be able to meet all those
That's
expectations.
right. You've got to be a subcontractor to those bigger, tier one vendors because yeah, we've dealt with that or, when we do things on the marketing side for like larger companies to get through their tests because like we'll do studies, and we're like, we're not hosting data. We're not gathering, personal information. But to go through those kind of tests, it was like 150 questionnaire. That was like Blue Book, like the old like essay test. It wasn't multiple choice. I spent over a week, hours each day, just I probably like if I can get through these 10 questions, next day I'll do like another 20 questions. But it was, oh, um, yeah, it's
Oh,
I don't think. Oh,
I
I'm
was
so
going to say I had the pre-COVID experience where somebody actually came to my house and interviewed me in person. They had a tape recorder and they would ask me the question and then I would have to answer and then they would take notes. And she was stoic. I didn't know until at the very end if I failed or passed. And thank God I passed, but it
yeah.
was nerve-wracking.
But you're like, but and then that's just the point of like it's very difficult to. I mean, it just shows also the milestones that you've hit in such a short time frame, but just showing the barriers of scalability and growth for smaller businesses to work with larger companies. There's still a lot of challenge. I don't think, we talk to larger businesses, they're like, oh, we want to support the small business. Like, well, then you can't treat um, engineering, design, marketing from some of this consultation like where you're buying widgets for. It's not the same. Um, and and they don't realize a lot of that. Like a lot of the purchasing agreements are based on like materials, and not expertise. And it's like we're
Right. And you look at some of the contracts. I just had one last week that came in, and it's like, wait a minute, we're selling our knowledge base, we're selling our
right,
expertise, our skill set to you. We're not selling widgets. We don't do construction.
right. It's like our utility contracts that we've gotten. We've just had to go, no, I think you guys need to take our service agreement with the language because you literally sent us what like you would send a construction company. Of half these clauses don't apply, right? And they're like, what? What? It's just funny how they kind of put us all as one. Well, I'm buying services. It's like you are, but use our operating agreement.
Well, and unfortunately, a lot of times, these large primes and these utilities, they are so, I say they're the Titanic. They
Yeah,
see the iceberg, they cannot turn if they want to or not. They're going to hit it because they can't be flexible like we can. And
yeah,
they're like, this is the contract, these are the terms, either you accept it or don't work with us.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, they don't apply at all, so sure.
yeah, yeah. Like what? Uh, um, what's been your biggest like, oh shit, like, oh my God, what, like if you've hit a wall, um, or some kind of barrier, and how did you overcome that? Do you have any good oh shit stories?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You can't be in this industry and not have old shit
No.
stories. It's everything from, I had a good friend who was at a utility and wanted to use our firm, but we wouldn't qualify because at the time we hadn't been in business long enough and we didn't have the financials. And so I was told, well, you need to go partner with this prime. Okay, well, so I contacted the prime and I had contacts there. I know a lot of people in the industry. So I just called up a friend and said, hey, this utility wants to work with me,
Right.
but I need you as a prime. Let me share the workload. Let me share the project scope with you, and we'll go together. Well, okay, great. Well, we put, NDAs, we put partnering agreements in place. We get everything set up, structured. We go through the interview process. We get approved. We actually receive the bid, but the bid document, somebody made a mistake and forgot to include my company on page 7. So the prime called me and said, I am so sorry. We're not going to use you. I was like, what are you talking about? I brought you into this. You're only part of this because of me. Well, page 7 didn't list you, and so we don't have to use you contractually, so we're not going to use you.
That sounds like that was done on purpose.
It did. And, when you run into things like that, it's not just disappointment with the business side of it, it's the emotional part of a friend that did you wrong. And, so you have to process that emotion of, well, you can't really trust this person that you've known for a long time and considered a friend.
You learn more about people who like truly how people show up. And it, literally had happened to me too. Not necessarily but our company got brought in to work with a developer out of Florida. It was somebody I had known for 15 years, thought we were friends, and this company then decided they didn't, they paid the first half of the bill and then ordered a bunch of other stuff. And so we were, you know, double, triple kind of in the whole, and they just were like, I don't think we need to pay you anymore. And to hear literal lies coming out of somebody that you thought you knew, and you feel the backstab more than, because then it's like, it's not just me, but you backstabbed all these other people. And now, it's like, I have to go face a team. I've got to go now to the back. I got to get a lawyer involved. I got to go and sue you, you and your company. I mean, it is um, a lot more emotion than I think people recognize. Um, and unfortunately, I think it happens as our lawyer kind of told us. They were like, there are people that prey on smaller female owned businesses, and that's kind of like they won't sue, or they won't do anything about it. They're going to be more forgiving, and it's unfortunate that we get taken advantage of. Um,
And that's a good segue to why I wrote my book, The
I
Art of
was going to say,
Revenge.
like, is that what started the art of revenge? Because I'm reading that synopsis and to our team earlier, and just to go through the lesson, and we were like, yep, felt that, dealt with that. We know, like we have had all of like had shitty, experience with employees. Yep, had vendors and clients. Yep, yep, yep. But talk to me about so what started the art of revenge? Was that contract or the demise of that contract?
It wasn't that particular contract. It was more what I call the abusive boyfriend 800 pound gorilla that is a lot of the prime engineering firms.
Mm.
I haven't had any of the utilities do this, but a lot of the prime firms, like you say, they take advantage of the fact that you're a small woman-owned business. They think because you're a woman, you're more empathetic, sympathetic, and you're easier to beat up and bully.
Mm.
And so I just got tired of being bullied. And I was like, I've got to be able to do something to defend and protect my company. So then I started researching it. And as I was researching it and going through this journey, I was like, if I need this, somebody else could use this information. And I was like, I need to write this down. So I started taking notes, and then the notes became the book. And then I published the book. And, I don't know if you've gotten to the end, but the very last part of the book is my favorite quote. And I actually have this quote on a poster board that's up in my living room. So I look at it every day. So the quote is, "The best revenge is massive success." And it's by Frank Sinatra.
That's right.
And so that's what, a friend of mine told me a long time. You need good lawyers, and you need to always, have your T's crossed, your I's dotted, and you always have your integrity and ethics in place, because at some point you're going to have to call the lawyer up, and you're going to have to say, hey, I need your help at this point.
That's right. That's right. And don't be afraid. Like, there are people and there are businesses that do take advantage, and don't be afraid to fight for what you're owed, and your position in this, in the category and the market that you serve. Yeah. What advice would you give? Because it's just, we just had a conversation not that long ago with another founder, that operates a very successful, it's a, electrical contractor. She's in, she works with a lot of prime developers and contractors. She's, woman owned, in the state of South Carolina, and is one of the only minority owned businesses in the state of South Carolina in that particular field. And she's been flabbergasted. Some of her ahas of recent, she commented that she was like, I don't know what to do, because she was like, I'm helping these folks get into the door, winning contracts. They're using my numbers, my research, all of my effort of the designs, all the specs, like all the details of it. I'm being told, hey, we submitted you, we've put you on as the minority owned subcontractor. And then she goes, and then they win the contract, and they're like, well, we're going to rebid this, because there's no accountability to the project owner, that to win it, they needed to show a minority, a woman owned or a minority owned business as part of the contract. but there's no accountability. They actually are using the people that were in. And she was like, I don't know what to do with this. Do I go like how aggressive? Do I need to be? Do I, other than calling them out, but I don't want to burn a bridge for the next project. So like your story just conjured up that whole conversation that we had. What advice would you give?
Unfortunately, it's all too common in this industry. It does happen a lot. And what I found is I call up my friend at the company, the
Yeah,
final company, the end client. I call up a friend at the end client and I say, hey, by the way, I am the diversity subcontractor on this bid. And so they look for me. And if I'm not on it because I'm friends with these people, they will call and they'll say, hey, where's Heather's company? You said you were going to use her. You're not using her.
yeah,
And so they'll question it. Now, I will say that I have found a lot of times all they have to do is write a letter and say, well, we tried to use a small woman-owned business. We tried, but we couldn't. And because we tried, everything's okay,
right,
and so there's really no accountability. The diversity spin numbers aren't recorded, aren't, released. Even you're in South Carolina, I'm in South Carolina. Let's
right,
talk about South Carolina law. South Carolina law says if you're a South Carolina company or industry, you're supposed to have 10% small business and or diversity spend.
right,
Clemson University, they meet it. They put it on their website. All the other state schools meet it, put it on their website.
right,
Santee Cooper, the South Carolina state-owned electric authority, they don't meet it. They don't even record it. They
right,
don't care. And I know these people because I used to work there, so I've called them up personally and said, hey, you've got a law that says you have to do X, Y, Z. And they're like, yeah, we really don't care what South Carolina tells us we have to do. I'm like, well, technically you're owned by the citizens of South Carolina.
yeah,
This is the law. Don't you even want to attempt to meet the requirement? And they're
right.
like, well, no, this isn't one of our goals. This isn't a KPI. We don't track it. We don't record it. We don't go after it.
Wow. The fact that they're being that transparent too, of like, we don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's where things like, you know, you sit on, I think the small business, is it the small business chamber? I mean, you're pretty active. I sit on a committee for um, a voice for out of the 10,000 small businesses for trying to change the SBA rules and advocate there because those haven't been changed since like 88. Uh, but yeah, to put those pressures on, and that's where I wish like chambers would do better at as an organization instead of chasing sponsorship dollars, which I know is important for some member, but to also put those accountability of you say you're for small business. What are you like? What are we doing? Because we're hearing the opposite or we're seeing the opposite because we can't say it or we can, but we're just kind of brushed aside.
So I'm on the South Carolina Business Chamber of Commerce in the environmental subcommittee, and
Okay.
I'm a board member of the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce. And so I'm active with both. And it's interesting because you're right. Membership dues are not enough money to cover what they need. So
Right.
they have to go after this money. But then you look at, okay, what are you doing? What are you advocating for?
Right.
And it's amazing where a lot of the money comes from. It's the same old story of politics, right? It's wherever the money comes from, that's the voice that's heard.
That's right.
And it's unfortunate. I can say that the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce, I know Frank, I call him up personally and I'm like, hey, Frank, we need to look at this. We need to advocate for this. We need to do this. We need to do
Right.
that. And Frank is very good. He's very supportive of small business in South Carolina. So I'm really
Good.
impressed with what he tries to do. Not that we're successful all the time because we're
Right.
not. I mean,
Right.
we go after things that we're unsuccessful on, but at least we try to give a voice to small business.
Right. But also, I think it's good to desensitize some of these conversations and these topics, because you do have a lot of women-owned, minority-owned companies who are just like pulling their hair out going, I don't understand. And it's, or they feel like they're being singled out. And it's more of like, oh no, I think this is happening on a much wider scale than I think people maybe not realize. And maybe we need to show those voices and more volume and more numbers to the organizations that are put in place to help support us, and not be
I,
afraid to go, because I think that's what happens. It's like, well, damn, I lost that bid again, and I was told they used my numbers, and I don't know what. And we feel that too, of like, well, Jennifer, we couldn't get it to work, and I'm going, well, who did you use? Oh, we just ended up using the same, 3 vendors they've always used. And it's like, so you're really not diversifying. You're not
well,
really
and
trying to widen your supplier.
exactly. And unfortunately, a lot of times, let's be honest, you see it all the time. The 3 main companies that they subcontract with, there's some sort of inappropriate relationship where there's kickbacks.
Oh, yeah.
There was one recently that the prime firm, one of the VPs, was a small owner of the subcontractor. I got kicked off, the other subcontractor got put on. And it's like, well, hey, wait a minute. He's part owner. How is this
It's a
not wrong?
conflict of interest.
It's a total conflict of interest and nobody
They're
cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, The Art of Revenge, it's out on Amazon. So for that, so like it looks like it's a really good read, and I think we can all relate to it. Heather, I was wondering, you were also involved with WeBank, and I was telling you before we started that we've been a member since 2018. We're in the process of renewing our annual renewal, and and you're on, like, I think a couple of subcommittees. And what have you found to be the most benefit of being a part of an organization like WeBank as a woman-owned business? Have
So
you found that there's an advantage there, or?
I think with WeBank, one of the advantages with it being a national accreditation, if you want to get other accreditations, a lot of times you can send your WeBank certificate and they will accept that. And it's a proxy for, okay, well, if you've got WeBank and they're national and we know all their checklists. So if you're WeBank, then we'll give you woman-owned business here too. Because you've got the national with WeBank, and then it seems like some states have their own certification, even down to some cities. City of Seattle has their own women business enterprise certification, and
So
they don't.
Charleston, I think, has that. Just even in our own state, like we found, I was like, wait a minute, we've done that with the state, but I have to go and register as a minority-owned business in Charleston, North Charleston, Columbia, Myrtle Beach. It was like, but yeah, we ended up sending our WeBank certificate. So, but that was an aha for me. I learned that, what was it, 2 years ago? I thought WeBank, or we're registered in South Carolina, that would get me into all the agencies. And I didn't realize just in the state of South Carolina, there are, for government related or anybody that's kind of owned by the public, there are 200 agencies that have budgets that you would have to submit, or, they need to be aware of you. That blew my mind.
Yeah, there's not one database.
Right.
Now, the state of California has the CPUC, and they maintain an online database. So if anybody needs to search for a woman-owned business or a minority business, they go into CPUC, to their clearinghouse, and they just do a search, and it pops up and it populates for whatever industry they're looking for.
Every state needs that.
I think so. It is very beneficial, and it makes things a lot easier, especially for people who are in procurement.
Yeah.
They're not getting bombarded by 50,000 of us sending them things. They already have one database they can go, they can put their search criteria in, and they can get a list with the contact information, and then they can contact those people on that list, and they know that they're already vetted. They know they're already legitimate businesses that are successful in their industry. So I think that'd be great for South Carolina.
I do too. Or shoot, SBA could own that and do that on a national scale. That would be okay. That's an aha moment we need to note. Put that in. Heather, is there a moment from your past? I mean, you've talked a lot, like, having a child at 17, starting a company in 2017 after decades of being in utilities. But is there a moment from your past that really shaped who you are today? Like truly, like, when people look at you, like, I note this is who I am who I am because of this.
It's a great question because my brother and I were just chatting a couple of nights ago, and he and I both are first generation college educated. And he and I are both entrepreneurs. We're different. I have an engineering firm. He does rental properties, but we're very similar in that aspect. And we were like, why are we who we are? Why are we so driven? And we came to the conclusion it's our dad, because he taught us algebra in second grade. Now, I don't know many dads that are sitting down their kids when they're in second grade and teaching them how to do algebra. But that's my dad. He always told me he raised a daughter, not an invalid. So being a girl was no excuse.
That's right. Yeah. I was telling somebody, someone was asking like a Hallmark. My mom was, I had a great role models, both my mom and dad, but I remember my mom, kind of a similar story. In high school, she would not allow me to sign up for like home ec or for, the old class. Like, I'm going to date myself, Chandler, because I'm sure they don't even have these classes anymore. But remember steno, like note taking, the steno classes? My mom was like, and typewriting. Like, my mom was like, you are not taking any of those classes. I was like, but everyone's like, I need to. It's foundation typewriting. She was like, one, you can learn yourself. And two, I don't want you to have any classes that represent that you're an administrator, like you're a support to anybody. And so she was like, you need to be taking the advanced physics, the advanced chemistry, like the advanced mathematics or advanced English. She was like, that's where you need to be. You will not take anything, because I don't want you to even have that as a backup. Like, well, I can go and be a note taker or a stenographer. She's like, nope, not going to happen. And yeah, my friends were like, but those are the easy classes. I'm like, I got to take advanced chemistry.
It was opposite for me. My mom wanted me to learn how to be a homemaker and how to be a good wife. That was a common thing. You need to learn to be a good wife. And so there was, I think it was eighth or ninth grade. I didn't want to take home ec. I wanted to take algebra and geometry at the same time. And she's like, no, absolutely not. You need to learn how to be a good wife. And I'm like, I'm not going to be a good wife. I'm just here to tell you, I don't care. I have zero desire to be a good wife. I'm going to make enough money. I'm going to hire somebody to clean my house. I'm going to hire somebody to cut my grass. I'm going to hire somebody to make my food. I'm going to hire help because that's not me. I have zero desire. I am not domestic at all and never have been.
And it was like, my mom was like, oh, you don't need to, because my mom was one of those, like, she's very controlling, anal when it came to cleaning and food making and all that. My mom worked her whole, career, 50 years as a nurse. But she was like, nobody's going to teach you how to clean a bathroom like me. Like, you're just not going to, like, I will teach you how to clean a bedroom like it's in a hospital. Like, you're going to, but yeah, we grew up with, like, my parents were hippies, just to give you some, and listeners might think that's the first time I've even mentioned that before. I grew up in a very hippie granola household. My mom made her own granola. My mom, like, baked. There was no packaged goods in our pantry. People hated coming to our house. at first to like spend the night because it's like, let's have cereal. And there's like homemade granolas. And then it would be a bag of like puffed wheat in bulk at the bottom of our pantry. But my mom made homemade sticky buns. It was always pancakes and stuff. So it was both my parents cook. We lived off, we had huge gardens. They, made everything. Worked with, had relationships with the farmers around us. So it was like all in like barter trade and stuff for food. And so it was, so now it's kind of like the thing, right? Homestead, urban. Well, that was how I was brought up. So mom was like, they're not going to teach you that kind of, like, I'll teach you better, how to run a house. But you're also like, I wasn't domestic, from a taught to be a good wife, right? It was more of like how to do things, how to organize, how to cook, how to clean. She could teach that. Go take the advanced classes. Because she's like, you're going to take over the world. I was like, maybe.
You'll get there.
We'll get
You'll
there.
get there.
So, what is something that you like about yourself that you wish other people would recognize you more? Maybe it's your own team. Like, do people on your team, now that you've grown and scaled your business, you're like, people have this persona about me, but they really, this is who I am. Do you have any of that? Or is there anything you're like, I wish people knew more about this side of me?
It's interesting. I recently talked to a friend of mine, Katie, and I told her, I said, I have had to play so many different personas of myself throughout my career. I don't even know who I am anymore. I said, I need to figure out who I am as a person so that I can try to project that to the world, because
Yeah.
I've had to play the game for so long and tried to fit the widget for whatever company and whatever position I was in and the particular manager I worked for. And I played the game for so long, I've kind of lost who I am. So I don't know who I would want people to see, because I need to figure that out for myself.
Oh, that's such a great little aha, Heather. It's so, we talk about this in some of our female founder circles, that I do think that we sometimes get lost. It is a journey that I actually went on in the last couple of years of self-discovery, self-awareness. I just got a note from Entrepreneurial Magazine who sent me like a little thing that was like, what would you tell your 10-year-old self? If you could go back, what would you? And I said, you know what? I think I would tell my 10-year-old self, of like, embrace your weird, like embrace your uniqueness. Don't be afraid of it, and don't conform just because I think we're probably, it looks like you might be a little bit younger than me, but probably at least in the same generation. But we were always taught like, ooh, that's, you're not like everybody else. You need to really conform to these, especially women in business, as you're kind of climbing up the corporate ladder. It's now, like, I love the newer generations of like, they are so confident of who they are. They are not afraid to show their uniqueness, or their voice. And I go back and go, man, I wish I would have had more confidence, to embrace my weirdness.
I think that's well said, because I think all of us are unique. All of us are special and different in different ways. And we are taught, especially as women, to be conformists, to fit
Mm-hmm.
whatever the man in the authority role expects us to be. And so we lose a lot of who we are over the years as we continue to conform and mold and, just, I don't know, you become like a corporate robot at some point.
Right. Well,
And then it's
then
like,
you're
who am I?
right. And I was telling another client who's a CEO of a tech startup, he's getting pressure from his board of advisors to go, you need to look more like you need to be where he very much is very casual. He's he's a software engineer. He looks like a Jimmy Buffett kind of, he's old baseball cap, kind of a linen shirt, shorts, flip flops. I mean, he's super cat. And I said, but that's who you are. And I said, that's. I was like, I've seen you speak. You wear suits. You're appropriately dressed when you need to. But if people are going to work for you and as you grow and scale, they're coming to work for, yes, the brand, but you've built that company. Don't shy away from you. Lean into it. Like, but yeah, he's getting advice to go, you need to, and he was like, am I crazy for thinking that? I was like, that's wrong. And I'm like, that's not, it's not crazy to think that it's wrong because it is wrong.
I
Um,
agree. And with women, I've heard the whole, have you heard of GLP-1? Have you thought about taking it? You're too cherub shaped. I'm like,
yeah.
cherub shaped? Is that a nice way of saying I'm fat? Okay. And,
I've never heard cherub shape, but I'm going to use that because that's so much better than you're shaped like an apple,
yeah,
which
and
is
the
ridiculous.
whole, dye your hair. I don't dye my hair. I'm going gray naturally. I raised 4 kids.
Yeah,
I've been through the ringer. These gray hairs are proof that I've been there, done that.
that's right.
And so I don't dye my hair. I'm not wearing makeup. I never wear makeup.
Yeah,
My skin is sensitive. If I put makeup on, I break out and then I look worse. But but I'm told societally, and by like marketing people, well, you need to wear makeup. You need to
right.
project the typical female image of a CEO. And I'm
Right.
like, what is that? What is a typical female CEO? What
There
does that
isn't
mean?
one. Yeah. To me, I was like, and I think that's another one of we need to stop normalizing what we see on social media of the because like I'm also one that I'm not a selfie person. Like it and I've been told you need to do more uh selfies every day and talk to the camera and do your like makeup and hair. And I was like, people do not need to see that. I literally put my hair typically in a bun almost every day. And I wear very little makeup. It would be the most boring makeup tutorial anyone has ever seen. I wear flip flops almost every day into the office. Unless I have a client meeting, then I wear
Well,
whatever is appropriate for that client. But
your
um,
flip flops are dressed up for me because I usually don't have shoes on. I've worked from home for 7 years. I just don't put shoes on unless I go outside.
that's right. Uh, Chandler's like, Jennifer, you don't wear shoes a lot in the office. Uh, so okay, so I know you do these gardening like YouTube. So is that I always say that, if you could tell something, something about yourself that is not on your LinkedIn or is not on your bio, what's something that our listeners would be surprised to learn about you?
So I love to garden. It is my therapy. It's how I stay sane. My husband and I work together. We share an office. And sometimes he'll look at me and he'll say, honey, go garden for an hour. I'll cover your calendar. Because
Oh,
he knows when I get to that point that, okay, I just need to disconnect and I need to put my hands in the ground. I need to ground myself physically
yeah,
by, just planting
you're in the dirt.
something, just getting out in the dirt and growing something. And I love it. I didn't grow up this way, but now I've got a garden in the backyard and I love shopping my garden. I love, going out, seeing what's grown that night and what I can pick and bring in for dinner. Now I make my husband cook it a lot of times because I can't cook. But, I can
You
grow
guys
it and
are a
harvest it
perfect
and bring it
match.
in. I do. I got lucky. My husband and I have been married for 26 years and I don't see us ever being
Congratulations.
apart. Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations. And you said you had 4 kids. What are the age span of your kids?
So my son Kevin, so he is 30. And then I've got stepchildren that came with my husband with his first wife. So we go up to 36, almost 37.
So do you have grandchildren now?
We do. We have 2 granddaughters.
Oh, very good. Now have you embraced your uh grandmommy the like the sense of come over, I'll bake you cookies, I'll spoil you because your mom and dad won't.
I have not been able to be what I call the crazy grandma, and I really, really want to be a crazy grandma.
Do
Um,
it.
well, they live in Ohio. They're not
Yeah.
close. We don't get to see them. So, I have threatened to move to Ohio just to be close to them.
Yeah.
My
I bet
husband's
they
like,
watch your
we're not
YouTube.
moving.
Yeah, I bet they watch your YouTube channel and you don't even know it. That-
Probably.
That's the way you can connect. Okay, so if we were sitting down a year from now and we got together over, I don't know, something in your garden or maybe cocktails if you like, what would we be celebrating?
So, a year from now, so my next goal is to become the trashy lady. So, my third company that I started just December of 2023 is Sustainable Fuel Tech.
I saw
I
that. Okay.
Yeah, so Sustainable Fuel Tech. So I have the intellectual property contract to use the patent of what I think is the best technology out there to take trash and turn it into green biodiesel.
Woo!
Yeah, so can you imagine closing landfills and creating green biodiesel to help out that economy? I
Yeah.
mean, it's to me, I'm excited and I'm like, yeah, let me be the trash lady. Let me do it.
Yes.
And it just hadn't happened yet. I've got all the paperwork in line. I've got the patent stuff. I can't get anybody to invest. Nobody wants to invest in a female. I don't know why. I will tell you this, and this will really make you angry because it did me. I had an investor lined up.
Mhm.
We had been talking for months and months and months and months. He was going to invest 15 million and we were going to be able to really get rocking and rolling with this company.
Right.
Friday before we were supposed to fly on Monday to meet to sign the paperwork, the meeting was canceled because my CFO resigned. And I got an email that said, we're canceling the meeting because you don't have a man to come represent you.
Oh,
Man, now I've sat in many office rooms, I've sat in boardrooms. I know how to read a contract, I know how to get stuff done. And I
right.
was told after months and months and months that they were not going to invest in my company because my CFO resigned and I didn't have a man to sit at the table with me.
Ugh. We need to get you in front of other investors.
I need to. I'm working on it. I'm trying.
Yeah.
It's hard because I'm running Select Power Systems, I'm running Select
No,
Renewables, and then I'm trying to get investors for Sustainable Fuel Tech. I've got only so many minutes out of a day,
that's
and
right.
so
That's right.
I'm
And
really
get,
trying, but it's hard to find the time to do it too.
yeah, and it's hard. Like and the stats are just terrible when it comes to like female founders and investors. Like we get less than 2% of all funding, um, VC, private equity, you name it. Like only 2% goes to female founders. But yet, but yet the ones that do get funding outperform men run businesses, startups, like 40% outperformed. Um, so it's like we're proven, but we just don't, we're not in those circles. Um, we had another startup that we work with, in South Carolina, and they were told after their initial kind of like pitch to the board of advisors of the private equity that they needed to, and it was a woman that delivered this information to them that they need to revise their deck, that they provided a better pitch, um, proven um, of their performance, but they'd like to see different numbers, and if they could redo and come back and be um less, what was it, woman, like, what did they say, it was like downplay that you're women, like your femininity, not that you're women owned, but just you come across like very strong women, and it's off-putting.
Oh my gosh. I think strong women are that's an advocacy for why you should invest
Right,
in us. I mean,
right. And so they were like, that, what? like not be as female forward. And then like the numbers are like, well, these are these numbers that are, well, just put these type of number, but those numbers, because this is what they're used to from the other male startups that they see. And they're like, well, are those numbers accurate? No, they're made up, but that's what our board likes to see of who they invest in. I mean, isn't that like crazy feedback that we get? I mean, and I hear stories like that from doing interviews like this, and get it just it now validates of why we're only getting 2% of the funding, or we see that some female, like, I'm just going to try to bootstrap it or do kind of crowdsourcing because they're hearing I call it horror stories of female founders that they know get the funding, and then it scales to a point and then they get replaced within 2 or 3 years
That
because
too.
they're like, well, we're gonna remove you from your as owner or founder, and they'll put a manager. So there's some of that some women are just like, I don't want to go that path because I'm afraid they're going to take my baby away.
Exactly. And that's kind of what it is. You have your emotional support where you do feel like this is a child that you've birthed, that
Right.
nourished and taken care of and grown, and you're proud of that. You're proud of something that you created. And to have somebody come in and just say, hey, we're going to take it from you and put a man in your place because we think he's going to be better because he's got the right genitalia.
Right.
That's insane.
It is
It's
insane.
ridiculous.
Or that this is what we've always seen from them. Well, have they ever performed that? Oh no. It's just baffling. The playing field is not even. So uh
It's not, but how do we advocate? Because I've gotten to the point in my life now where it's like, okay, there's not a lot I can do to change my path and the challenges that I have, but I've got granddaughters. I want to make it better for them.
that's right.
How do I become an advocate? How do I advocate for other women and make a difference?
I think starting like here, raising our voices, because that's the thing, when I share these stories um, with people, you start sharing the stats with wider groups. One, I think it's we um, business leaders, I think, go, oh, I didn't even realize this was a thing, or aren't those like one-offs? And it's like, no, we need to normalize like having these conversations and not be so worried of of serving these things up. And people are trying to either, I call it, blow out our candle or dim our light, and they're doing it sometimes very blatantly, or they're doing it, uh, you know, they don't even realize they're doing it. Like, and sometimes it starts with women need to stick together and empower each other, of
Yeah, well,
and elevate each other, because
you
it's
know,
not
it's
just men on the side of the fence that we're trying to advocate for, or those decision makers to make decisions differently. Sometimes it's other women sitting across that table that is even more judgmental and even more critical of other women, and we need to stop that.
I agree. And, I hear so many people tell me that I should not promote The Art of Revenge, my book, that that's something that I should be ashamed of and embarrassed of. And I'm like, look, I'm not a poet. I'm an engineer. I'm a numbers person. I love numbers. Words don't come easy for me. But
Right,
I took the time to sit down and write this because I think it might be beneficial.
right.
Is it perfectly written? No, it's not. I'm sure there's mistakes in it, but it was important to me, and I think it's important to others. And I'm told, don't market it. You should be ashamed of that. I can't
Right.
believe you actually have that still up. Why don't you take that down?
Yeah.
And it's like,
They're blowing out
that's,
your candle, Heather. Stop it. Don't let them blow out your candle.
well, and a lot of times it is men, yes, but it's also women,
That's right.
don't have a voice, don't be critical.
Right.
That's what you hear. And it's like, why? If
Right.
I don't, who will for us?
That's right.
Who is going to step up and say, "Hey, this is wrong. We need to do better as a society," if I
Right.
don't?
And elevate these this is what's happening. It's not, and sometimes it's like I said, it's not in isolation. Um, I was in a convert with a younger, she's, in her early 30s, and she's like, the, you know, sh we had a conversation. I was kind of listing out all of these examples that I hear from women in business, female founders, of these barriers that they're coming, like very misogynistic, you know, um, lack of like the fundings, the change, not, don't be as female, don't be so female in your presentation. Um, and she's like that, but you've been in the corporate business for like 30 years. This stuff you're talking about, those are examples from like 20 years ago. And I was like, no, no, no. The 5 examples I gave you all happened within the last 5 days. Like,
Right.
this is not something that was years ago. This is in the last week. And she was floored. She was like, whoa, I just thought that stuff doesn't happen anymore. And I said, oh, it happens. And so her thing was, she's like, we gotta stop being so sensitive and let people know that you're not alone. Right. Because a lot of times we just think, oh God, that's kind of weird. Uh, you know, that probably just happened to me because they're judging and they're critical of just me. And I think we need to start going, it's not, because of the color of our hair or what we wear. It's mostly because of our gender. And
Well, the word bossy. I actually had a manager during an annual review say, "You need to be less passionate. You need to not be bossy. You need to realize that some of the men that work for you have overbearing wives and they don't want a woman that tells them what to do at work." Okay, but I'm their boss. How am I supposed to tell them what to do when I'm their boss without telling them what to do? How am I supposed to not be bossy when I am literally their direct manager?
right.
No answer. It was, well, you just got to figure it out. You just have to change. You need to
Yeah.
stop being you. What
Yeah.
do you do with that? I mean, that's ridiculous feedback.
You voice back up to, like, if, hey, how about we embrace some empathy on all sides.
Right,
And
exactly. So, it's something that, and that's why I started my YouTube channel, Women for Wealth, is because it's like, okay, there are women now who are making good money. I mean, I've
Mhm.
always been the breadwinner in my family, but there are a lot of women now that are making good money. I was never taught, and I
Right.
think there are a lot of women out there that were never taught, okay, you've got some money. How do you build wealth? And so I've
Right.
kind of taken the advocacy standpoint of, if women need something and I can learn it, I should teach it. I should support. I should be in that, role of not just paving a path for the next generation, but making it easier and better for them because I
Right.
share my experiences.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Heather, you are like an unstoppable force in this world. You really are making a mark and advocating for, not just in your industry, but for women in general. So you're definitely a gift.
Well, thank you. I do try.
Um, well, before we leave, how do you want people to connect with you, find all the information, and all the things all about Heather?
So probably the easiest way is LinkedIn. I connect with everyone and I put my personal cell phone number and my email address and my contact information on
Wow,
LinkedIn. I
you are
know,
so trusting.
I know, right? And another thing I do is I block off 2 hours each week to provide free coaching.
Oh,
So if anybody has a question or they're struggling or if they just want to vent, I'll give you an hour of my time for free just to sit there and listen and just be an advocate, be a support and say, you know what? I understand, I hear you. You're validated because you're important.
Right. You're not alone. You are not
Exactly.
alone. Yep. Oh my goodness. Well, we'll definitely put the link on LinkedIn and make sure that we highlight that you offer that because that's fantastic. Um, I'm always amazed at how fast these things go. I've enjoyed our conversation, Heather.
I have too. I've loved meeting you and getting to know you more. I think you're a wonderful person. And as soon as I heard about this, I was like, I've got to be a part of this because this is really cool and amazing. And I listened to a couple of them, and I think you do a great job. And if there's anything I can do to support and help you, please let me know.
Oh, thank you, Heather. I think we're going to become really good friends. And for all of our listeners out there, thank you for hanging out with us. And grab this episode this coming Sunday. Um, we are, again, you can find us on your favorite podcast platforms. This podcast, will be available. Give us a like, give us a share, comment, help us build a more connected entrepreneurial community. Again, HelloCast is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That's Orange Whip, WIP for Work in Progress. It is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. We're in 3 markets of South Carolina today, looking to expand outside of South Carolina. Every city needs to have an Orange Whip. Just an email to join our community. Again, we're a one-stop content hub just for founders and an innovative digital zine experience. If you'd like to be on our podcast or support us, send us an email to hello@Orange Whip. Again, that's orangewip.com. Y'all, thank you for hanging out with us. It is where aha meets oh shit.